Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works for today, Monday, February 22nd, 2016.
Commissioner Davis, Rodriguez, James, Repenning, and Jacinto are present. President James, we have a quorum. May we start with Bureau introductions, please, starting with Bureau of Sanitation first.
Alex Halu, LA Sanitation.
Chimeng Gong, Bureau of Street Services.
Good morning, Ruben Flamenco, Bureau of Street Lighting.
Good morning, Alan Kawaguchi, Bureau of Engineering.
Good morning, Chris Smith, Bureau of Contract Administration.
Good morning, Ted Jordan, Public Works General Counsel.
Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. President James, we did not receive any speaker cards under general public comment. However, we did receive speaker cards under items 5, 6, and 7 from today's agenda.
Okay, let's go ahead and close general public comment. Our first item of business, the approval of the meeting minutes from the meeting of, Wednesday, February 3rd, 2016. Is there a second to my motion that we approve those meeting minutes? By Commissioner Rodriguez. Any objection? Without objection, those meeting minutes will be approved. Let's go to agenda item number 1. Bureau of Engineering for Council District 1, recommending the board authorize the city engineer to issue a revision of the task for solicitation number 00-007 to Pinnacle Environmental Technologies, increasing the budget authority from $370,000 to $420,000 to provide continued groundwater monitoring and related services for the Piper Technical Center. Michael Mulhern.
Mike Mulhern, Bureau of Engineering, Geotechnical Engineering Group. Piper Tech is a very complicated site. As you know, it's just on the other side of the freeway. There are a lot of underground tanks there. Several have leaked. Fortunately, most of them are in a small group near the back. It's also complicated to the fact that it was a former manufactured gas facility run by what is now Sempra Energy. In other words, they took crude oil that was cheap from the San Joaquin Valley and turned it into natural gas. Unfortunately, that left a lot of shallow semi-volatiles and other contamination. In addition, we're right next to the LA River, so that has some implications that we don't want contaminants to get into the river. And then finally, it's near an oil field, but fortunately at Geotechnical Services, we have geologists experienced in the oil and gas industry, so we can tease out what might be not city's responsibility. In other words, the crude oil is generally not remediation required by the state agencies. But anyway, we have 13 wells. We've been monitoring these for a while. We probably won't do extensive remediation unless the state asks for it, and or DTSC has Sempra Energy clean up the shallow semi-volatiles, but basically the site is built out so that it's not amenable to large-scale excavation. So we're asking for $50,000 to continue monitoring the wells at this site, and I note that Pinnacle, a small, basically it's a two-man operation, they have excellent maybe-weeby participation.
And we move these essentially year to year, Michael, because of the funding requirements, the protocol placed by the CAO on requiring we re-up each year with the amount that's necessary?
That's true. We've asked in the past if we could ask for several years, but the answer from the CAO has always been every year we'll just re-up the amount that we need. So we're forced to budget and come back to bore you with this material.
Sure. Okay, any other questions for Ms. Mulhern? Commissioner Davis?
I wanted a clarification. You said you're asking for an additional, how many thousand?
$50,000.
Oh, $50,000.
Yes.
And this is an annual allotment to take care of services for a year of monitoring?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's 50 a year. Okay,
yes.
Great.
Anything further?
So moved.
Commissioner Davis has made a motion that we adopt agenda item number 1, seconded by Commissioner Jacinto. Any objection? Without objection, we will do so. Any problem sending it forthwith? We'll send number 1 forthwith. Agenda item number 2, Mr. Mulhern, you're here for that as well. Bureau of Engineering for Council District 15, recommending the board authorize the city engineer to issue a revision of the task for solicitation number 96-060 to Pinnacle Environmental Technologies, increasing the budget authority from $915,000 to $1,145,000 to provide continued groundwater monitoring and related services for the Lanzett Industrial Park project. Again, Mr. Mulhern, before you start on this one, same issue regarding CAO funding requirement, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, go ahead.
This is an interesting site both for the city and the community because it's going to be developed as a high-tech manufacturing facility. The idea that I've heard in the past would include electric batteries for electric cars, and also this would have a job training function. Unfortunately, the site has kind of a long history because developers who partnered with the city have either left, or there's been recessions, or unfortunately one developer passed away. Also with the city, there's been some changes. Our initial clients was the Community Development Department, and they've been dissolved. And now we're working with EWDD, Economic Workplace Development, and that team, unfortunately, suddenly left. So I'm just trying to always update to the people over there that are our ultimate clients, but unfortunately, I'm not sure when this will go to development, but that's okay because we've put in our wells, we've injected a hydrogen releasing compound which will hopefully dissolve the solvents at depth. We're making the state happy, and we've told them that we can move our wells as necessary for the development, so we won't hold up the development. We've always budgeted so that they can move some of the groundwater wells around and allow development to start whenever that happens. Basically, we've injected on 2 occasions where we're just waiting for the groundwater to respond. Lately, it's been a little slow, so we may do some bacterial injection to have a bioremediation component to this as well as the chemical remediation. So again, we're increasing authority for this year for $230,000. It's more because it's a larger site and we have a lot more wells to monitor.
Any questions from Mr. Mulhern on number 2? Is there a motion on number 2 by Commissioner Ascento? I'll second it. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 2. Any problem sending it forthwith? We'll send number 2 forthwith. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go to agenda item number 5, continued from February 5th, 2016. Advisement from Commissioner Ascento, Council District 5, recommending that the Board, 1, deny the appeal of the Bureau of Engineering determination to locate an above-ground facility in AGF adjacent to 1349 North Stone Canyon Road. 2, approve the request for a variance from the height limitation requirements of the AGF ordinance. And 3, authorize Verizon Wireless to install a 27-foot-high monopole in the public right-of-way adjacent to 1349 North Stone Canyon Road, with the condition that Verizon Wireless work with the appellants to design a monopole similar in appearance to the existing streetlight poles in the area. We have some speaker cards on this, but Mr. Ledoux, would you come up first and provide just some summary data, bring us up to speed, and lay the foundation for us, if you would.
Hello, my name's Jeff Ledoux. I work with Bureau of Engineering Central District. This is for a Verizon installation for 2 things, a 27-foot monopole with antenna array and a power meter pedestal. It is along Stone Canyon Road in the Brentwood area. Basically, there were 3 appellants, Dr. Jerome Stroff, Walter Adams, and Barbara Lankin. 2 of those appellants are here today. The reason for the appeal was possible health risks and also the lower property value due to this AGF installation being next to their property. I have actually been out there once with Cable Engineering Services and the head of the HOA out there, Mr. Krupp, and some of the appellants. And I know CES has been out there further and has contacted the appellants and worked with them. At this point in time, they do have a design which they can show, which does look like or similar to the street lights that are out there. So it'll be much less intrusive. And they have talked about where to locate it with the appellants out there and are prepared to discuss that.
Okay, when you say that we're prepared to discuss the location, does that mean that prepared to discuss the location that all parties are going to agree to?
Correct.
Okay. So that would, I would need to, that makes me think, Jeff, to ask you, what would be your recommendation on our action taken today?
Basically, to deny the appeal on the conditions that the pole be placed where it has been agreed upon by all parties involved, and that the alternate pole design that looks like a street light be another one of those conditions.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Ledoux before we go to the speakers? Thank you, sir. Let's start with Jerome Stroffs, one of the appellants. Good morning, sir.
I want to thank the ladies and gentlemen here for the opportunity to speak this morning. And I previously spoke before the board a couple of months ago on this issue, and I presented some paperwork involving medical studies that had been done, and my objections were twofold. Initially, my objections were medical, about the harmful effects of what a pole in front of my driveway would do as far as the health of myself and my neighbors around me. And secondarily, and not as important, was my objection to the aesthetics. Now, this gentleman over here, I forget his name, from Verizon or the engineering department, sent me some pictures of modifications to the pole that make it look like a light standard, and they were very nice. I don't object to that look. However, there's a large box there as well, and I object to the way the box looks, since I'm going to look at it every time I come out of my driveway. And there are various remedies that can be used, from moving the box farther up the street where there's plenty of an area to put it, or to put large shrubs around it so you don't see it. But that's strictly attacking the aesthetics of the AGF project. My main concern, and what I'd like to do, is prevent it entirely from being there, because of the studies that have been done all over the world stating that this stuff is harmful. Now, there are obviously other studies that say it isn't quite as harmful, and neither one of us know what to believe. But I would like to err on the side of my safety, my neighbor's safety, our children's safety, and prevent that installation from being there altogether.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the appellant?
If you'd like, I can get the paper that I read and cite the studies.
If you want to submit something to us, that's entirely up to you, sir. It's not our decision, it's yours.
Okay, so you don't want me to read it here?
It's to read through the study?
Yeah.
If you want to submit a document, you're
Well,
entitled to.
I already did submit it, so.
Okay,
you know,
all right.
that would be redundant.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Gene Brinko?
Hi, I'm Jean Brinko. Thank you again for allowing us to speak regarding this project. Like Jerry, like probably everybody, we don't want to have radio signals going through our heads, or whatever kind of electronics that involves. I'm not an engineer, far from it. I think that's probably a done deal, that these towers are going to be put up, and the aesthetics of the pole that they're putting in it's beautiful. If it looks anything like the picture, I would be very happy with it. It's adjacent to my property. The only question that I have is the meter box, and whether or not that's going to be adjacent to my pool, which is about 3 feet away from the right-of-way. Just would rather have that on the other side of the street, where there's an empty piece of property. It would have been great if that pole could have been put there too. But I understand from having spoken to the engineers who are working on this project that is impossible, because they have to set it up with other signals. So that brings us to the third issue, which is the electrical box and the placement of it, hopefully not right outside of my pool. We're hoping, I've already spoken to them about moving it further down this street where there is this empty piece of property. And if that is impossible, to at least make it aesthetically more pleasing than having a box like a sore thumb everybody's face will be passing it. So it's the box that's really the issue here now. The pole and the placement I'm really happy with. And everybody's been real cooperative in my dealings with them. I think that should be noted too, that the engineers have been really responsive. I don't have anything further to say.
Thank you. Any questions from Ms. Brinko? Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kuiper?
Good morning again, Commissioners, and Mr. Jordan and Mr. Campos. I prepared a handout, double-sided. This is from Mr. Searcy with Cable Engineering Services, extremely cooperative. Couldn't have asked for more. Also, Jeff Ledoux, our taxpayer dollars are at work. He's extremely cooperative and working with both sides. This is the handout. It's dated February 11th at the bottom. It's double-sided, and this shows the proposal in the right-hand picture at the top on both sides of what is proposed to look like a light standard, just like the other light standards that are on Stone Canyon. We think it's terrific, and we compliment him and Commissioner Jacinto for working with the appellants on that. Appellants Walter Adams and Barbara Lakin aren't here, but I got their approval on these. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention the third page is what Mr. Searcy emailed on February 8th to everyone, and it shows a little red circle on the left at the bottom. That's where the pole used to be, and this is their extreme cooperation in moving it to the other side. So that's the second page of the handout. So, and Mrs. Brinko is not an appellant, but she's here as the most affected neighbor at 1349 Stone Canyon, and Dr. Stroffs is the next affected across the street. So we understand from Mrs. Brinko and that Rob with Cable Engineering Services is going to work with her and DWP to put the box further down the street on the other side of the pole. So we're aware of the FCC mandate on wireless, so we would recommend action. We, on behalf of the Bel Air Association, I'm a volunteer director with the Bel Air Association, would recommend that you approve the variance and deny the appeal with the conditions that the light standard looked like what Mr. CHC prepared on February 11th, and work with DWP. I understand he needs to get approval from DWP to put the box on the other side of the pole, further down towards Sunset on Stone Canyon. And the last is that Mr. Searcy work with Dr. Stroffs and Mrs. Brinko and us, if we can help, to install foliage to help cover up and obscure the electrical box that has to be next to the pole. So that's our proposed request for your action on this item.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Kuiper? Thank you, sir. Mr. Searcy?
Mr. Chairman and Board, my name is Rob Searcy. I represent Verizon Wireless, and I work with Cable Engineering Services and Prescott Communications. First, I want to thank the appellants. It's not very often that I get a group of appellants who are participatory in the process. Commissioner Jacinto really, I think, brought us all together and started the dialogue, which brought us to a conclusion I think that everybody, as you've heard by the testimony today, is in agreement with. What we sought to do was really twofold. One was to address the location of not only the meter pedestal, but also the light standard. The aesthetics of the light standard have been a big challenge, as you know, when we're installing these new masts in residential neighborhoods. What we did is work with a pole manufacturer to come up with a design that replicated the existing ornate light standards in the neighborhood. They are fully fluted. They will replicate the base of the light standard as well. They will have a glass dome on top where the antennas will be housed. All the interior will be filled with our coax and our energy to power the facility. I think aesthetically, it's a win-win for everyone, and I think it's a win-win for the community as well. As it relates to the placement of the meter pedestal, we will work with the Department of Water and Power to come up with a location that I think can accommodate the concerns of the residents. We will also be planting vegetation around on 3 sides as is allowed by DWP. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation. I'll answer any questions that you have.
Commissioner Cento?
Thank you. Rob, thank you on behalf of the board. Thank you for being an applicant that's willing to work with our residents, our stakeholders, as they are most important in these types of issues. Let me ask you a question about the light standard. Good work on just sort of the whole replication of sort of blending in. You know, the light, can it be functional? Can we take that housing and there's an opportunity to make it not a faux light, but a functional light?
Well, I know that'd be one of the concerns that we had from street lighting in the past, as we've talked about. So what I can do is go back to the pole manufacturer and see if there's a way that I can at least put some type of an LED lighting inside. It'll give it a semblance of functionality. It obviously probably would not be able to meet the light distribution that BSL streetlights do, but it would be a solely owned pole, not owned by BSL, but we will do what we can to make that a functional
Right, Rob, that would be
light
great
standard.
because then if it is a faux light, people will be continuing going, why isn't that light on? Why isn't that light on? If
Absolutely.
it's functional, it doesn't have to meet the standards. It's not intended to be a functional light fixture, but then it serves a purpose, and I think that's a great added value to the whole package.
I will definitely pursue that to the extent possible and report back to Jeff on that.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
First of all, I want to thank my colleague, Commissioner Jacinto, Verizon, and the appellants for actually working together to resolve and identify a new location and find a solution that we could all kind of work together on. I think, you know, it just makes all of our lives much easier when everyone can come to terms with the fact that we have services to provide. There's a larger constituency here that also is necessitating the service and the access to service, so we have to make the best and most challenging decisions oftentimes to help ensure that we're fully meeting the needs of the community. And so I want to thank everybody for kind of coming together to work towards a solution. On the issue of the box, I just wanted to get a better understanding. So there is an opportunity to relocate it in a manner, in a location that is more amenable for everybody involved. It doesn't have to be co-located in the way that it's kind of presented currently.
Yes, Commissioner. What happens is that meter box is a standard DWP element. It's in our experience that they've been very accommodating and amenable to working with us to find a location that works. So I think that we're going to make an attempt to move it further south, which is on the other side of the pole, away from Dr. Stroff, and also further away from the rear yard enjoyment area of Mrs. Brinko.
Great. And then so I guess in our report, assuming that we, will be adopting the recommendations, that it will either be amended or noted that the location of that box would then be addressed in that conversation, in that in further dialogue, if you will, in further conditions. The other thing I just want to suggest, and I know Ruben was taking some copious notes, to whatever extent our Bureau of Street Lighting, given the advancements that we've made with smart pole technology and incorporating both a functional standardized street light, operational street light in conjunction with providing these technological services, our Bureau of Street Lighting is an incredible resource, and to the extent that I can be helpful in facilitating that conversation to help ensure that the manufactured pole, we already have standards on that. Happy to help facilitate that conversation so that we can resolve that and have a functioning street light, which would, I think, also be beneficial to the residents as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
thank
that
you.
offer.
Ruben?
Ruben Flamenco, Bureau of Street Lighting. Certainly, we don't have any issue with aesthetically with the look of the pole. We may have some questions if we try to make it into a functional pole, just because of liability issues related to the lighting level that it will or will not meet sufficiently for our roadway and sidewalk. We would certainly want to work with Verizon to find a solution if we can make it into a functional pole, but certainly we have some concerns and reservations about turning it into a functioning pole.
Thank you, Mr. Searcy. Mr. Kuiper, you want to add something?
Excuse me, Bruce Kuiper again. Just because the functionality of the light pole is just a new issue, I'm concerned about, and I just spoke with Dr. Stroffs and Mrs. Brinko about it, we're concerned about light pollution if it's 27 feet, because that's not the height of the lights on Stone Canyon. So if it becomes a functioning light pole, we would all have that concern that it's too high and would go right into her backyard.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for referencing that. Commissioner Jacinto?
Really quick, thank you, sir. Just want to thank and appreciate Jeff Ledoux for handling. He's our first line of defense when he deals with all the AGF hearings, in the area too. So, Jeff, you can't retire anytime soon. You got a lot more work ahead of you. So that's it.
Mr. Ledoux? So Commissioner Davis, do you have any further questions on this item?
No, I just wanted to compliment all of the stakeholders working together, and particularly Verizon as well, that there was a solution. I remember them coming to us prior to this resolution being worked out, and it's really refreshing to know that everyone and the stakeholders were able to work together on something that we could mutually agree on. So again, I thank you.
Mr. Ledoux, so I want to make the motion correctly, so perhaps between myself, Mr. Campos, and you, we can get the motion made accurately. So I would make a motion that we adopt the recommendation of the board report on agenda item number 5, denying the appeal, as you stated, with the following conditions that you're going to state right now.
That the
This is the teamwork here.
that the
Because you artfully did it a moment ago, but go ahead.
that the monopole design be that of the fake streetlight, and that the location of both the pole and the meter pedals to be that was agreed upon between Cable Engineering Service and the appellants.
Okay. And do we have an issue remaining, Commissioner Rodriguez, with the location of the box?
The box is what I'm talking about. The meter pedestal will be moved further south, as close to the property boundary as possible without changing the notification pattern.
Okay. Are we missing anything, Mr. Campos?
Just more specificity in regards to the location of the meter pass. Is that just, it's still adjacent to 1349?
Correct.
Okay, so it doesn't change the address per se?
No, it would not change the address. Otherwise, you change the properties of the application.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So that's the motion. Mr. Jordan?
There was a mention in the discussion about the planting of some landscaping or shrubbery. That is typically a standard requirement. I didn't know if you wanted to make any clarifications on the record in that regard. Landscaping?
It is required in the application.
Okay.
It is a part of it.
Okay.
And I trust that Mr. Kuiper will keep an eye on that. So in the process, along with Mr. Searcy. So, thank you, Mr. Jordan. So the motion is sounds like it's made, seconded, as stated, seconded by Commissioner Rodriguez. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 5. Any problem sending it forthwith? We'll send number 5 forthwith. Thank you. Let's move. We have another AGF while we have the same folks here. We have a supplemental. No. It's 7. Supplemental 7. Advisement, Bureau of Engineering, continued from February 19th, 2016 in Council District 5, recommending the board approve the request for a variance from the height limitation requirements of the above-ground facilities ordinance and allow Verizon to install a 27-foot high steel monopole in the public right-of-way adjacent to 151 North Stone Canyon Road. Mr. Ledoux, much as you did on number 5, could you set us up here on number 7? We only have Mr. Kuiper and Mr. Searcy on number 7 with speaker cards, but go ahead, sir.
Once again, my name is Jeff Ledoux. I work for the Bureau of Engineering Central District. This is another one of the Verizon poles in series in this area in Brentwood. It is also the 27-foot high monopole with the meter cabinet. Initially, we did have an appeal from the person that's across the street from this, Mr. Jeffrey Kaplan. The actual side of the street that this facility is proposed on is part of the country club. I think the golf course is there. His concern was there is a small forest along the fence property line of the country club, but right where his property looks at it, there was a break in the trees, and so this thing would be in his viewscape without the trees behind it. We met out in the field on June 29th with Mr. Kaplan and with Mr. Kuiper and Cable Engineering Services, myself, and it was decided that if we moved it so that it was in front of trees, just a few feet away, that would solve his dilemma. And Cable Engineering Services had one of their radio frequency engineers out there, and he said there's no problem doing that whatsoever. So Mr. Kaplan, on that basis of the location that was decided out in the field and everyone saw, removed his appeal.
Great, thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Ledoux on this? Okay, let's start with Mr. Kuiper.
Good morning again, Bruce Kuiper, Volunteer Director with the Bel Air Association. I emailed with Jeff Kaplan. He's a really large house, the only affected property. I just want to recommend that you adopt the item with the condition that the compromise location that was reached be included, and also that the same, I think Mr. Searcy is in agreement, the same faux light standard that was approved for number 5 be adopted. So those are my, on behalf of the Bel Air Association, the 2 requested conditions, which I've gotten Mr. Kaplan, the only affected homeowners, approval for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kuiper. Mr. Searcy?
Again, for the record, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. President, my name is Rob Searcy. I'm with Cable Engineering Services representing Verizon. I think everybody has definitely described the situation we're at. There was a concern by a resident. I think it's been resolved, and we're in agreement with the previous comments from both staff and the constituents. So
Terrific.
I'm available for any comments or any questions.
Any questions, colleagues, for either Mr. Ledoux, Mr. Kuiper, or Mr. Searcy on number supplemental 7? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Ledoux. So I would recommend a motion similar to what we did a moment ago, that we adopt the recommended denial of the appeal as set forth in the board report with the following conditions. And now the floor is yours.
In this particular case, since the appeal was dropped, there are only 2 recommendations. One is to approve the variance from the height limitation. The other is to authorize Verizon to install the pole. So basically, your motion would be to adopt the board report as recommended with the conditions that the street light pole be used and the location decided by the parties involved be where it's placed.
Yes, that's exactly what I meant to say. So that's the motion, seconded by Commissioners Jacinto and Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item supplemental 7. Any problem sending it forthwith? We'll send it forthwith. Thank you. And Mr. Ledoux, let me just add again, we've been doing this together. I'd just echo my colleagues a bit for a number of years, and we do appreciate the collaboration and the spirit with which your division of the office has been working through these.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, Bureau of Engineering for Council District 15, recommending the board authorize the city engineer to issue a deductive change order number 33 to Stanek Constructor Incorporated in the amount of $272,618 for adjustment of bid item numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, and 11 in connection with the Terminal Island Water Reclamation Plant Headworks Facility Improvement Project. Sean Zahedi.
Good morning. Sean Zahedi, Bureau of Engineering, Environmental Engineering Division. This is a request to authorize the city engineer to issue a deductive change order number 33 to Stanek Constructor, Inc. for an amount of $272.618 for the Terminal Island Water Reclamation Plant Headworks Facility Improvement Project. On January 25, 2013, your board awarded a contract to Stanek Constructor, Inc. in the amount of $5,158,000 and a contingency amount of $257,000 for a total construction cost of $5,415,900 to construct the Terminal Island Headworks Facility Improvement Project. On August 1, 2014, your board authorized an additional $257,000 in contingency for this contract. Now the total construction budget stands at $5,673,800. The project scope included the installation of mechanical bar screens, grit collection system, and solid screening washing equipment, and also included the automation of the existing solid screening transfer system and replacement of the grit chambers aluminum covers. The project is finished construction, and on page 2 of the staff report, there's a table listing the 11 of the bid items for this contract. Bid item number 1 is mobilization, and bid items 2 through 9 are fixed cash allowance items. Out of the 11 bid items listed, the bid item number 1 and 9 were completely utilized. Items 2, 3, 10, and 11 were partially utilized, and bid items 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 were not utilized at all. The total for the unutilized bid amounts is $272,618. So this change order basically is a deductive change order for the contractor to return to the city the amount that was not utilized. On page 3, there's a table of change orders for this particular contract. There were 32 change orders. 29 of them were fully executed for an amount of $450,426 total, and 3 were canceled. And when we add this change order number 3, which is the deduct change order, to the amounts, we end up with a total change order amount of $177,808, which is 3.44% of the construction cost. So our recommendation, therefore, is to authorize the city engineer to issue this deduct change order for the amount indicated.
Thank you, Mr. Zahedi. Any questions for him? Is there a motion? Commissioner Rodriguez, seconded by Commissioner Jacinto. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 3. Any problem sending it forthwith? We'll send number 3 forthwith. Thank you, Sean. I see that you're here on number 4 as well. Bureau of Engineering for Council District 6, recommending that the board authorize the city engineer to sole source the selection of a Hayward-Gordon grit pump, Allen Bradley programmatic logic controller, and Rotork valve actuator for an amount not to exceed $65,000 in connection with the Donald C. Tillman Water Reclamation Plant Grit Chamber Flush System project. Go ahead, sir.
Yes. This is, again, a recommendation to authorize sole source selection for the 3 pieces of equipment that you mentioned in the amount of not to exceed $65,000. The Tillman plant began in 1985 and has a capacity of 80 million gallons per day. The facility provides primary treatment, then it provides biological nutrient removal, filtration, and disinfection, which is chlorination, basically. The recycled water from the plant goes into the Balboa Lake, the wildlife lake, and is used at the Japanese garden. The outflow finds its way to the LA River. Part of the wastewater treatment process takes place at the headworks where the flow enters the plant, and debris and grit are removed from the flow in order to prevent damage to equipment downstream. Grit has an abrasive quality that tends to damage pumps and valves and pipes. So we remove the grit at the head of the plant, and the grit is basically collected in what are called hoppers, and then pumped out into the outfall sewer, and eventually finds its way to the Hyperion plant. Over the years, Tillman maintenance staff have had frequent problem with the grit removal system. Basically, not to get into too much technical stuff, the pump inlet gets clogged up frequently with the debris and the grit. So the system needs to be shut down. The grit moves into down into the process and causes damage to the process downstream. To address this problem, this project proposes to install an automated grit pump flush system and a debris screen to prevent debris from getting into the pump inlet and to prevent further damage downstream. The Tillman maintenance staff have extensive knowledge and experience in using the Hayward Gordon grit pumps, Allen Bradley PLCs, and Rotor valve actuators, all of which are currently used at the plant. And they have found this equipment to be more reliable compared to other equipment in the market. Also, sole sourcing specific equipment is more cost effective in reducing the cost of maintenance, training, and also spare parts inventory. For this reason, Tillman is moving towards basically standardizing the plant's equipment. Based on past performance, using a Hayward Gordon grit pump, Allen Bradley PLC, and Rotor valve actuator will provide Tillman with reliable equipment. Therefore, the Bureau of Engineering recommends that the Board of Public Works authorize the sole source equipment mentioned above for Tillman for an amount not to exceed $65,000. This project is in design, and the total construction cost is estimated at $920,000. That concludes my report.
Any questions for Mr. Zahedi after his comprehensive and helpful report? Thank you, sir. Is there a motion on number 4 by Commissioner Cinto? I'll second it. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 4. Any problem sending it forthwith? We'll send it forthwith. Thanks, Sean. Good job. Agenda item number 6, Bureau of Sanitation. Recommending the board authorize the director of the Bureau of Sanitation or his designee to issue amendment number 1 to existing task order solicitation SN5 with Tetra Tech Incorporated, increasing the total budget authority from $1,813,320 to $3,899,556, including a 15% contingency, to provide on-call consultant services for GIS support for implementation of routing programs. Alex, we have 2 speaker cards, but we will start with you. Set us up, provide the foundation and the background. Then we'll go to our speaker cards and come back to you with any questions, et cetera. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, great. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Commissioners. Alex Helou, Assistant General Manager for Sanitation. I want to briefly explain what we did and where we are now and what happened in between. Prior to August 2015, there's 3 ways you can reach the City of Los Angeles Bureau of Sanitation to request services. The first one is 1-800 number. The second one is the website. And the third one is the My LA 311 application. Once you call the 1-800 numbers, an operator will pick up the phone and put down your information into the system and issue a request to go out to fulfill it. That's bulky item, dead animal collection, miscollection. So that goes through a system. At that time, we were averaging less than 5 minutes for people who calls us. We also have the website and the My LA 311. When you put the request through the website, it comes to us, a confirmation is sent to you, but our operator will have to go in the morning, download what was entered, print it on a piece of paper, walk over to a terminal, sit down and type the information in, enter and basically a request for that service to be fulfilled. The same thing with My LA 311, the same. You have to enter it manually, you have to come in, print it, and then fulfill the request. We knew the system doesn't work, and so in August 5th, we switched to a new system. The new system basically supposed to take all that information and send it in real time to be fulfilled. So we had multiple phases. In phase 1, August 5th, the 1-800 number, now the operators, which we have, get the call in and entering into a new system. So we knew there is a time for them to learn the new system. Although they went through training and we had a preparation, this still is a new system that they have to get adjusted to. The website and the MyLA stayed the same way. It's still manual. You have to download it and you have to enter it again. At this time in August, September, we had a hurricane hit us. And that hurricane we had a daily news article that spoke about the services that's lacking from the Bureau of Sanitation and the city and bulky item pickup and everything else. The same thing with the LA Times story. And of course, as you know, the 2 largest newspaper, we experienced a skyrocketing number of calls into our system. We were not the only one to do. I mean, we have a relationship with Republic, Waste Management, and others, and they also 40 to 50% increase in the call volume to their systems. So what did we do? The first thing we would do is we extended our operations hour. Instead of ending at 4:45, we extended to 8 p.m. We felt this way, we're telling people instead of keep waiting during during our high time, please, call us till 8 p.m. And our staff stepped in and we basically paid overtime for staff to work till 8 p.m. The second one, we started bringing people on Saturdays, on overtime, our staff on Saturdays, to take the MyLA, to take the website information, which is all manual, because now we pulled every resource, as you can imagine, from the website and the MyLA just to answer phone calls. Any able body we put them on the phone. Again, they were coming on Saturday and doing all this stuff. Unfortunately, it made very little dent in the request we were getting. And we were tiring our staff, because imagine now you're working from the morning till 8 p.m. every day, transportation time back and forth. So that was hard to do. So we went to the second step, and we said, let's talk to other city departments who have a customer care center. We reached out to DWP, we reached out to the 311. DWP would have been ideal because we lost in the last, I think, 2 years over 30 of our employees to DWP. They transferred, so they have all the knowledge. But as you can imagine, DWP has their own issues, and they could not really offer us staff who could come in. The 311, to their credit, Mark at the time offered 2 of the staff after hours to come in and help us. But those would be done after the 4:45, where our calls are coming down. But we still take anything that they give us. Those are city staff who can use. Unfortunately, with everything that we've done, we thought between August and October, we could have the situation under control. We did not. And we tried our best to see what resources we could use internally. We offered staff in sanitation, if you can help us on Saturdays, just to enter data, just to relieve some of our employees so they can take time off and be with their families. We did not get many, maybe 1 or 2. So the second best thing to find out, the 2 other elements still have not been implemented, which is the website and the MyLA. We were hoping our contractor will be able to have done this by October. Of course, with glitches and everything else and the story of the Sandstar and everything else that come with it, That pushed us. We did not get the system up and running till January 2016. That's when now, if you put a request through a website, it goes in, a confirmation is issued, electronically transferred into the yard, so the service will be rendered. The same thing with the app. So once the app comes in, the same thing, it goes electronically into the field staff to fulfill it. This last Saturday, we hosted neighborhood councils at Hyperion. We had neighborhood council members from West Hills down to the Harbor Gateway in South LA. And a lot of them said how the experience has shifted. They love the customer care center now. They can call in, they can get in less than 2 minutes or most times. Before they're waiting 55 minutes and in queue and hoping for somebody to answer. And we did try another feature, which is callback system. We felt, okay, you don't want to wait, please leave your name, information, we'll call you back. It sounded great at the time. I thought it was a brilliant idea until we started calling people and they were upset because we're calling them at 7 and 8 p.m. when they called at 11, 12 in the morning. So that did not help us. The question came to us and with my staff, how many people do we really need to help us through this transition? These are employees who are going to help us with the MyLA 311 implementation phase. And frankly, we didn't know for many reasons. One of them is how long this duration is going to be and all the circumstances happening around them. And so we asked several of our consultants if they can give us any staff they can help us. Most people we don't have personal service contract, and so we asked, and Tetra Tech and their subcontractor, who really stepped in, and he said, let me find some people. Because you can't just take somebody from the street and put them behind the customer desk and say, now answer phones. There is a training. They go through 3 weeks of training. There's also, you have to be able to talk to the residents, although they're upset about their bill, they're upset about the trash pickup, about the service that has not been rendered. We have to be courteous. We have to listen to them. So they did the first, basically, they picked several people, they interviewed them, and then they brought them over to us, where our staff did the second interview. Thanks to my staff, they condensed the training from 3 weeks to 1 week. And what they did was they used the 10 staff we have for a specific function, which was take the emails, take the website, which we know now people have been waiting for weeks to get their service, and start entering that information. That relieved the pressure of our staff. That was not enough. So we asked for a second batch. So on November 2nd, they brought us another batch of 10 people, the same process. We went through training them on a certain special skills that they can help us in. The final batch were 6 that we got in December. The batch we got in December seems our operation has stabilized. Our call wait has less than 3 minutes, and we started seeing improvements. Also, I mean, my staff on the customer care center were tired. When you look at the screen and you see 100 people in queue and your phone is ringing, you don't have a minute for a break. That's not fair to our staff. So we thought that this small help is very crucial at this type of transition. Luckily, in January 2016, we have the website working and MyLA 311 working. So we don't have to worry about that one, have to print them manually and then enter all this information. And so that's basically in a nutshell what we had to do. Now, where are we going from here? Again, this is only the second month after the website is up and after the app is up. We are going through El Nino with all the flooding. The customer care center becomes 24/7 operation for all the calls that are coming in. Because when MyLA or the 311 system stops at 4:45, we take over for the entire city. And we started routing calls for DOT, for DWP, and for others. Whatever comes through our center, we start the routing. Our plan basically to, for those, hopefully that 26 taking the city test, move on to something in the city. They have gained skills that are could be implemented in other parts of the city. I mean, we had several success cases from those 26 that I like at least one of them to mention. One lady with her family was living on Skid Row, and the Marcus Group found them, basically interviewed her. She's been working for us since October, and she hasn't missed a day. She was able to move to an apartment with her daughter, and and we have multiple stories like this. It's a great entry position, and was it the cleanest way of doing it? I don't know, but at this time, when we're looking back, having people waiting for 50 minutes is totally unacceptable. That I thought we've done this way, and we hope your support on this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. We have 2 speaker cards. So let's hear from our speaker cards, and then we can go through questions. We have Alice Goff.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Alice Goff. I'm president of AFSCME Local 3090. We represent clerical and support services employees in the city of Los Angeles, and particularly here in the Bureau of Sanitation, we represent the communications information representatives, CIRs, who staff the call center. I want to start with reading you a letter that we sent to Mr. Saldivar December 9th, 2015. And it reads, "It has come to the union's attention that the Bureau of Sanitation has contracted with a private firm to receive customer care calls and process requests for service. Sanitation call center staff believes that this service is being conducted overseas due to the large number and types of errors in the service requests that have had to be reprocessed by city staff. It has been the city's policy and past practice to inform the union of the intent to outsource any work of current staff. To date, the union has not received any such notice, and it appears that this work has in fact been contracted out. The union is requesting that a meeting be scheduled as soon as possible to discuss this matter. We further request that any proposal, contract, and related documents pertaining to Local 3090's bargaining unit work be forwarded immediately." No response at all from the department. So I also just need to give you a little bit of background in that the Bureau for many, many years has used as needed staff as what we would determine to be regular staffing needs. We have talked, met, asked, been promised that in subsequent budget cycles that the adequate or correct staffing level would be determined and then those positions filled by regular staff, but it has not happened. I have pages from our membership system of who we have currently identified as needs
2 minutes.
Staff.
Please continue, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't see a clock like City Hall. Sorry. Anyway.
Please continue.
Thank you. So the fact of the matter is we've been trying to get a handle on this, as I said, for a very long time. All of the duties that are listed in the report are in fact the duties that are performed by our members, the CIRs, and I just have to put in the dig to say that they're done right the first time. It is true that the staffing level was not adequate, and there is no reason why the level of service should not be improved. Not only is it bad, city service, but it is bad on our members who are there, the burnout and the frustration that they feel when they have really irate callers on the line. It's clear that funding is not the problem, in that the Bureau is able to allocate an additional $2 million in this contract. We just want that those positions, the work of the call center, not be contracted out and instead be regularized. I want to point out also from what Mr. Alou said that the My LA 311 app started with ITA, who those members are also CIRs that we represent, getting those calls. So they are in fact processed as received. The staff there in ITA is directed to process the call if you receive it. They're not like automatically, oh, this is a sanitation call and transferred over to sanitation. No, it is handled. So that just really also tells you the volume of calls once that the ease of reporting was made available to the citizens, of course, they use it. And so there just was not like the preparation for the systems, for the volume of service calls that were being received. When the department realized it wanted to go extended hours and a complete 24/7 and even open another center at the Hyperion, we met with management to talk about how members would be able to staff move from downtown to Hyperion, what the request of days off and scheduling rotation, all of that. One of our first questions was, what about the staffing level? We were told at that time that they had authority to hire 17 additional staff. Now, I don't know what process that is in, if it's been completed or not. We've not met, since. So, and then these additional 26 staff, they obviously came in, phased in based on how the work came in. But at the end of the day, these systems are here to stay. The call load is what it is. We just need to determine what is adequate staffing level and then move to transition employees in the as-needed status to regular employees. I know that some of them who have been there for years, who cycle in and out, did in fact take the test the last time the CIR test was given. I don't, again, you have to place, you do well to be picked up. We understand all of that. I think that a couple of them were when, the staff was filled with regular staffing, but we have to figure out a way. So our request is that, in fact, the continued use of contract workers not be approved, and instead we figure out some expedited hiring plan. I believe that there is a current CIR list. The training period for somebody coming through the contract is the same for a regular employee. And so there's no reason why we can't, in fact, get regular staff in place. We just completed negotiations where the city committed to regularizing positions and not having it so that, you cycle people in and out. Mr. Hillu gave the perfect example of being able to bring someone in, give them a job that then allows them to have a constant, regular employment, as opposed to being released and then having to come back after your anniversary year as an as-needed employee. It just really has to end and be addressed in a way that determines the adequate staffing level and fill it accordingly.
Thank you, Ms. Goff. Alex? I'm sorry. Teresa Sanchez?
Good morning, Commissioners. Teresa Sanchez, AFSCME District Council 36. I also represent the staff that we're talking about, the bargaining unit work in sanitation. I just wanted to remind you that we have a letter of an agreement that was part of our new contract, an agreement with the city to hire 5,000 new city workers in order to restore services to the pre-recession level. And we actually have mechanisms of doing a program that can streamline and accelerate hiring, do training, leverage resources through our workforce development system to meet any staffing need that the city has. We have offered that to the Bureau. They know it's available. They never communicated with us one word on this topic. And we are a very agile organization. We could have turned around on a dime to help them out and figure out how to solve this without contracting out. So I would ask you to please instruct the Bureau to meet with us as soon as possible to talk about how we can develop a program to fulfill your needs and to meet the needs of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Alex? So we may have a few questions, but some of the questions that I would like for you to respond to that were raised by either of the Ms. Goff or Ms. Sanchez. First, the issue of potential calls going overseas that Ms. Goff raised, if you would respond to that. The issue of the, what you know regarding the letter sent, I believe December 5th perhaps is the date, to the general manager. And then I would like for you to talk about the where we are in the budget process with the regularization of a number of the staff positions that were referenced by the two AFSCME representatives. And then maybe some follow-up questions regarding where we go from here, as I think the points were well made and well taken, that the call volume is what it is, and as we improve with our service delivery, we are going to see, and more people become aware of its availability. We'll see the call volume, I think, that will maintain itself for some time. So with all that, go ahead, and then we'll hear from my colleagues.
Okay. Alice showed me actually the letter. You haven't seen it before, but I know it was addressed to Enrique. But in the letter, it talks about the overseas. And let me clarify what that means. 3DI, the company that has developed the MyLA 311 for us to use, is based in India. They do have operations in the US, but a lot of the programming that was happening to develop the system, a lot of the software development was happening in India. The staff we have over here was basically implementing it. This is, again, a citywide contract that that ITA and us are using. So as we were developing the software, glitches come up. And so communications were happening between the staff that 3DI has over here and the staff in India. Also, you have to remember there's the time difference between us and India, and there's about at least 10 hours, if not more. And so what happened, the problem that comes in the morning, we have to wait or send it over to them to say, well, this is happening, these glitches in the software. And so some of the glitches were in the two items I mentioned, especially actually in the app. So the app still coming in manually, we want to make sure it's working. So it was for their staff in India to try to fix the problem. What better than give it to a programmer who wrote the code, how to take the call coming in, how to route it, and send it back. So they did have this is really the overseas portion. There were mistakes back and forth, of course, because that's the development of a software. You find things as you go along. But I don't believe the 3DI was able to solve it all over here. They had to rely on the technical team. And 3DI is not only working for the city of Los Angeles, they're doing stuff with the federal government, they're doing with other states, and they're using the same process. So, right now we live in a global economy, and a lot of these software are sent back and forth to be fixed. So that's really, I think, the overseas portion. We did not hire operators overseas to enter and take phone calls from a US like other companies. That was basically just to get the MyLA working, just to get the website working, just to get the app working. So we needed their expertise because the people over here would not. On the call volume, the call volume has came down, but some of the reason it came down is because now people don't have to call 2 and 3 times to get the same service. Because you call the first time, you're waiting 10 minutes, you hang up. You call again, you wait another 10, 15 minutes, you hang up. So you have more people calling in. So now the call went, so the call volume went down. But we still have, over between 2,700 to 3,000 calls every day that's still coming in. That's still significantly more than when we started initially. Staffing, it's a great point. We went through a recession, and the city is the last one to see the recovery from a recession. We had requested positions before, but we were trying to protect the positions we have in the Bureau. It was, we have only 45 authorities. And with the franchise kicking in, we will have another 17 positions. And our goal, or my goal, is actually to regularize those 17 positions, that adding to the customer care center. But those 17 will bring in also calls with them that we have to evaluate and find out, do we need more than the 17? We work with the unions, I think, on a lot of great stuff, and this was one of those items that we could work together on and try to find out what is the best solution for our employees and our residents. And on the budget process, that's really the as-needed portion of the employees. We do this in the Bureau for drivers. When they retire, they come back, and we use them to help us out during certain seasons. When we know people taking vacation, they have school graduation of their children. So those augment our operations. And on the driver's side, it's helpful because they already been trained, they know what they need to do, and they don't want to work full-time. The same thing, with some of the clerical staff. Some of them don't want to work full-time because they have families and stuff, and they enjoy maybe 10, 15, 20 hours a week. So that helps us and helps them. We do have, as needed, who would absolutely like to be a full-time city. But then the city process, you have to go in, take the city exam, score high, be reachable, be able to pull it out. I mean, perfect example is my right-hand person in the customer care center, Herlinda. I'm going to use her. She ran the customer care center for the last 3 years for us with no list. She was acting in the customer care center. Unfortunately, with the test, she didn't score as high. We could not do anything for her. And so the city exams is one of those things that, unfortunately, you want to help people, but if they don't score high, we can't do anything about it.
Commissioner Davis.
Well, I hate to be so frank, but I could hardly wait till you finish your
I'm done. I'm sorry.
Your presentation. First, I want to talk about this board report. Does it say anywhere in here that we have calls overseas? Coming in from overseas? It doesn't say that? In the future, I would like for it to say that if that is the case. Because being surprised is not a great thing when we don't have to be surprised when we work on the same team. I would like for in the future, if we're having calls from overseas, you to put it in the report so that I can be prepared in which to respond appropriately as a member of this commission. That's number one.
But Commissioner Davis, we did not have any calls overseas.
Do we? I thought that she said we had calls overseas. Is that true? That's not true.
Just the programming on my LA 311 was done
people
overseas.
From overseas be doing business for us on this project?
I'm sorry.
On a separate project.
It's not on this one.
On the development of the 311 system.
Yeah.
The contractor that was hired by ITA in sanitation had some staff working.
That is not the case here, though.
No.
As a separate project.
Okay, I want to make sure that I'm clear.
No, I mean, I just want to make sure also that because we did not do that one.
Okay, good. Okay, then in terms of this project, now that we've established that, because of course that would have been a major concern to me, not that I don't realize we're in a global economy. I do realize that, but I also realize where we are with the highest unemployment in the country, in South Los Angeles and perhaps East Los Angeles as well, and I see public works as a tool in which we can effectively use to empower the citizens of Los Angeles and employment opportunities when they become available. And I further see call centers as that kind of thing where you have skill levels where people can compete and become involved. When I look at this, breakdown that has been given us in the board report, we do have a lot of minority businesses and women-owned businesses involved in terms of those who are providing the service. Is that correct?
Absolutely. All the money is going actually to an EBE, WBE.
Okay, great. And then the scope of the work of this particular proposal is 2 years, is it?
Well, we did not want to change the term of the contract that's existing, so it's 2 years, so that stays the same.
Okay, fine. So then we have an opportunity to restructure some work towards a future that it has a more solid foundation as it relates to permanent employees in the future, because as the president of the commission has stated, the workload is not going to change. It's probably going to intensify as time goes by. And so there were several discussions about being involved with conversations as to how we can make that happen. I don't know if you've had a difficulty with the internal bureaucracy as it relates to the finance department or what have you, but have we any plans, short-term or long-term, to look at increasing the numbers of permanent people in the future moving forward in terms of the call center?
Any position, again, we only have 45 positions. Any position increase will have to be approved by this, by them, of course, the mayor and the city council.
This arrangement is only for 2 years. We do have to make some planning moving forward.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I'm speaking to.
We have 17 new positions that we can talk about. Those 17 new positions will be available.
And you are meeting with stakeholders that do business with us to move in that direction to explore the options for those 17 people. Is that correct?
Absolutely. They will be off the CIR list that Ms. Goff spoke about. So this is city exam, and we'll have to pull up the 17 from that list.
Do you know if we intend to return the calls on the letters that have been sent to the Bureau with regard to a need to communicate with us? I mean, I can't make your decision. I'm not attempting to, but I am concerned about, are we gonna return those calls, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Before the end of the week.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Repenning?
Hi, Alex. Last year was a difficult year at sanitation, the second half of the year. You know, between the revelation of a large backlog of hundreds of cases that were unclosed dating back to the time of the recession, when we didn't have the, you know, when certain work assignments were transferred between bureaus, we didn't have the staffing, et cetera. The press attention to those issues, to the data issues at the Bureau, created a very large problem that you guys were all hands on deck trying to solve. One of the, and managed to move forward. I know it was a tough time, but you guys are back on track, and I'm proud of that. One of the unintended consequences of the negative press was generating a lot of calls. We were in development with the new 311 system, and so it was a crisis situation. 45 minutes, an hour for people to wait to request a basic service from the city is unacceptable, and so I understand, you know, you guys looked at different ways to solve the problem. This was the way that you ended up solving it, and so now we're back down to acceptable wait times. I called the other day myself, and someone picked up right away. So the crisis has been solved, and that's a positive thing for the city. Now, I did not understand that we were not that we had not had communications with our labor partners on this, and so I think what I would like to see going forward, you know, I understand we don't totally know yet what the needs are going to be of the customer call center. We don't, you know, the new 311 is now online. We're not sure how it's all going to play out, including with the franchise when it gets up and running. I know we have 17 positions, not temporary positions as I understand it, but 17 positions related to customer relations for the franchise program. And so I think what I would like to ask is for going forward, if you can sit down with labor and talk about the staffing plan going forward, and open up that dialogue, and let's figure it out for the future. We need to make sure that when our residents call to get services, that their calls are answered and that the services are provided. And so let's find the best way forward, working within the system that's been set up with our labor partners to find those solutions.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Alex, so in the briefing I had indicated some of my concerns about this contract and the way that it was approached. Frankly, I'm even more concerned now hearing that our workforce wasn't really consulted in some ways to help identify solutions. I'm a big believer in making sure that we can actually reach out with those that are on the front lines to help identify the solutions, and that's really many of the ways that we oftentimes find the real practical solutions and avoid a lot of these circumstances. You know, I have some trouble in that I recognize the sense of urgency that we had given the volumes that we were experiencing and increased calls and all the variety of challenges that we had, providing the utmost best-in-class city service is our top priority. But in the contracting process, I feel that there's some integrity that we have to exercise in that process. I'm concerned knowing that there were new avenues that we could have pursued in terms of a streamlined hiring process where we could have helped to identify and accelerate the hiring to help supplement the services that we needed to provide on this call center. I have some more concerns just having recently heard that and discovered that in this conversation here at board. And I have some concerns about a 2-year contract. In this process, in this conversation. And so, I mean, I understand the need to be nimble and responsive and provide the best in city services, but I have more concerns when I feel like we didn't perhaps exhaust every opportunity to resolve this in a way that was most prudent in terms of involving all of our partners. So,
if I can just, you're absolutely correct, Commissioner. In the board report, we did state that we're going to be evaluating the 26 as we go along and what the needs are. So, but I did not want to touch the length of the existing TOS, which we have piggybacked on to use it. So, but thank you. We'll make, so that's something that, following up what Commissioner Petting has mentioned, we sit down with the labor partners and find out what the true staffing that's needed. We can go from there.
So, one moment, Commissioner Davis. So, Alex, so just so I'm clear, we are, from what I'm hearing from Commissioner Penning and from Commissioner Rodriguez in the conversation with you, so we have it's a 2-year toss, but we can, as we move forward and we evaluate our hiring ability and timing, once we're able to fill some of the positions that we need for this customer call care center, and the need for the 26 as you've referenced, once that need tapers off, there are how are we billed in the TOS process so that we're able to taper that off as the need becomes a city employee versus an implementation through this task order solicitation. Does that make sense?
Let me try. I think we're looking at the phase-in of the existing employees.
That's why I'm saying it.
Yeah,
Can we phase out the TOS over the next several months if the hiring process avails itself that enables us to do that?
For those, the TOS itself stays, but this portion of the TOS, absolutely.
Okay.
Could be phased.
So you're piggybacking on an existing TOS, and the 2-year length is related to the original TOS rather than this piece of the contract.
Absolutely.
So, Commissioner Davis.
Clarification of the 2-year TOS, we've already endured how much of it already? Haven't we engaged in some of the 2-year original TOS that we're referring to? And we have maybe a year and a quarter. So this March it'll be a year, so we're already into it. So we're really only talking about a year and a couple of months.
Mr. Campos?
Yeah, just for clarification for your board consider, the current contract was issued back in February 2015, so you do have about 29 months altogether because there is a 2 years plus a 1-year extension. So in essence, you could be looking at 29 months all in total or as short as 17 months.
But it could be 1 year if we don't execute the
then you
extension.
can always terminate at any time, correct?
Yeah, so it's 1 year.
Right. Now, And Mr. President, since I have the mic, Fernando Campos, Executive Officer, one of the things that I did want to share with your board so that you can consider this as you deliberate on this item, there are several issues with the contracting requirements with the Los Angeles City Charter, and that is sections 370 through 372 and also sections 1022. So I will try to go through these really succinctly and short so that you have an understanding of what these requirements require the boards to find and determine as you consider a proposal of this sort that's before your board today. Section 370 requires all contracts to be in writing and signed, except in cases of urgent necessity for the preservation of life, health, or property. Now that needs to be indicated in the report. However, I did not see that in the report, nor did I see any recommendations from the Bureau recommending that that be an exception to the rule. Section 371 does allow you and requires you to competitively bid all proposals in regards to competitive bidding, competitive sealed proposals. However, there are some exceptions to the rules. There's 10 in total. However, 3 may apply in this situation. Again, the board report does not indicate which ones would apply, nor does it require your board to make a determination. The Los Angeles City Charter 371E does require your board to make that determination and make that finding, and that report, in the report before you, it does not suggest that. Section 371E2 does allow you to contract for performance of professional, scientific, expert technical services. However, they need to be temporary and also occasional character. Occasional character and temporary should be discussed with your board in terms of what does temporary mean in terms of 6 months, 3 months, 1 year. Occasional character, is it going to be recurring? Is it going to happen often? As Mr. Helou indicated in his presentation, this has been continuous and it's been going on for some time. So the real discussion that your board should consider is how do we define temporary and how do we define the occasional character? And perhaps maybe a shorter time period would be a better advice or recommendations, i.e. 6 months, 1 year, but the item before you right now would allow you to extend up to 29 months.
Mr. President.
Let Mr. Campos finish, Mr. Davis.
Section 371E3 does allow you to make an exception if the council or if your board allows you to declare in writing that there is some sort of urgent necessity for the preservation of life, health, or property. Again, the report is not indicating that before you. The last option that the board could have considered is Section 371E10, which requires all board items, especially for professional services agreements, to go through a subject to Charter Section 1022. The 1022 requirement basically requires 3 major steps. 1, determining the amount of the contract that is considered reasonable, and it has an incidental labor component. The incidental labor component is established by by the City Council back in 2004 to be that of $25,000 or more. There are 3 parts with the 1022. 1, making the determination of how much the dollar is, whether it's above $25,000 or below the $25,000. The item before you is $2 million, so therefore step 1 would require you to go through a 1022 determination. The second step for 1022 would require you to outreach to other departments that may provide the services and also notify the unions in that process. Mr. Helou indicated that he had no knowledge of the letter or the email. However, the 1022 requires you to notify the unions automatically. I don't see that in the report. In addition to that, the third step in the 1022 requires us to go through a cost-benefit analysis to determine whether it's feasible or economical for us to move forward. There is mention in the report in terms of economics. However, there is no cost-benefit analysis that is provided in the report. So therefore, I would caution the board to consider these items because there has been no determination in the recommendation, nor has there been a recommendation to make this findings in the report before you. The last item really has to be about the nexus and also the ratification. In essence, if your board were to consider this items, you would be ratifying the decision of the Bureau of Sanitation to retrodate this contract back to October 2015, when the services started, all the way through the date in which it would conclude, which could possibly be 29 months. For those instances, the report before you does not provide the determination required or does not provide the findings required, nor does it provide any sole source justification in terms of what this board may want to consider or not consider. Therefore, my recommendation would be to possibly continue the item and instruct the Bureau to go back and address all these issues that I raised regarding 370 to 372 and 1022 and the ratification language so that your board could consider a full, complete report. Otherwise, I would extremely caution this board to move forward as is.
So, Commissioner Davis.
Ted, I wanted to ask in terms of the current duration of the proposal before us, it appears that we have a year. Is that correct? Is it a year? I'm hearing various times put out. My understanding is because we're piggybacking on this, we currently have approximately about a year. Is that right, staff? Do you guys know? I wanted to confirm legally that that is the case.
Well, I think just to kind of take one step back.
Yes, sir.
Because ultimately it's not clear to me. The original task order, SN5, which was awarded following a task order solicitation, the TOS, was for the GIS work. And that GIS work, my understanding is, has been occurring and still needs to continue to occur for the period of time, which is why they're not proposing to really modify the task order to increase its length. The task order is awarded pursuant to the contract, and the contract is there for the purposes of awarding task orders. The contract will have, I believe, the amount of time that is remaining, 2 years with the optional 1-year extension. And during that time, we can issue multiple task orders.
We don't have to continue the extension, though, Howard.
No, I don't believe the Bureau is requesting an extension of time to the task order. They want to add...
We have endured 1 year of the 2 years, correct? So that leaves us approximately a year and a couple of months, if that, right?
Do we vote on an extension?
We do vote on an extension when we come to that road.
An extension
bridge,
of time is not before you.
That's not up. That's out now.
No.
But I just want to, this 29 months keeps coming up. It's not 29 months
No, it's only
until
a year.
we vote on it.
It's
so.
only approximately a year. And in fact, as you said, Commissioner Repenning, we have the choice when we cross that bridge to vote for or not to vote for the extension. We're not compelled by contract attorney to vote for the extension, are we? In a year? We're not compelled to do that, are we?
So,
that's the question.
Answer Commissioner Davis's question, then Alex, I have a proposal for you.
How much time?
Yep.
Okay. This doesn't answer your question, but I'll give you more information. The contract was awarded on February 13th. It says on February 13th, 2015, the Board of Public
report's
Works
attached.
authorized LA Sand to award the contract. The contract is for 2 years plus as a 1-year option, so it can be up to 3 years. What's not clear to me is when the task order was awarded under that contract, and if that task order has a specific duration of itself.
So we're not clear about that.
The task order is essentially the assignment we give to the contractor. The contractor has this on-call contract. We can give them multiple task orders. We usually follow a process to do that.
Can we legally terminate our relationship after a year?
Yes. Typically, all of our city
Termination
contracts
clause in every
have a termination for convenience provision, and presumably the task order itself. Because, mind you, no one's talking about terminating the contract. Tetra Tech may be providing services to the Bureau on a wide number of task orders during the course of its contract.
I just want to make sure we had that option after a year, because that's clearly the understanding we have about the duration of this.
Okay, so the task order under the contract can go all the way up to the end of the contract itself. So if the contract was awarded according to the report, February 13th, 2015, and it's for up to 3 years, then the contract can go all the way up to February of 2018.
But my concern, though, rather is I wanted to be clear that we can terminate this relationship in a year if we choose to do so.
Yes, we can.
That's what I want to be comfortable with.
There are termination clauses in every contract.
But the Bureau is not, keep in mind the task order was awarded for them to do GIS work. They're doing that work, and I believe that work is ongoing and will need to continue to be ongoing. What this amendment is to expand the scope of the task order so that while they continue to do the GIS work, now they bring in this additional call center support work. And so the money is necessary to cover the increased cost of that increased scope.
I have one quick question, and that is, in terms of these 25 people with whom we have proposed to work, do we have diversity in that group of people that are going to be carrying out the work that is being proposed before the board today?
Absolutely. I think many of them are bilingual, and I don't have the breakdowns, but we have a lot of diversity in the.
So basically, you're saying it looks like Los Angeles.
And then some.
I beg your pardon?
And yes.
So, Alex, what I would recommend, after hearing from, although I see our city attorney and executive officer still in caucus over there, what I would recommend is that, first of all, the key is that we continue providing this very important city service. So today we need to maintain the status quo on the progress that we have made to eliminate this backlog, number one. Number two, you've come to us with the request for approval of this plan to move forward. And from what I hear from our executive officer, for the board to properly consider the plan, and Mr. Jordan and Mr. Campos, let me know if I summarize accurately. For the board to properly consider this plan moving forward, there are various findings that need to be existent in the board report that the Bureau has undertaken. So, so I have a question and a recommendation. My question to you is, are you able to continue moving forward for, let's say, the next 14 days, maintaining the level of customer service that's being provided right now, so that the Bureau can meet the requirements as described by Mr. Campos, and we can continue this matter and have what is deemed to be a solid, for lack of a better term, board report, number one. And then number two, to begin the process of discussion with the AFSCME representatives, as was requested here, with the positive response that you already elicited, but that discussion needs to begin in earnest. So regarding my first question.
Can I answer the second one? Easier.
I'm sorry?
If I can answer the second question, ask me.
Yes.
We have good relationship, excellent relationship with our union, including AFSCME. We worked with them on multiple of things, including the promotion of 10 of our customer care center, which we supported the bonus for them to become, because now they're doing billing, which changed their job specification. We were 110%, myself and Herlinda, in helping those 10 people, which we felt, honestly, they were being underpaid for the job they were doing, what's equivalent at DWP. We supported their increase, and we had to fight with different entities, but it did pass in the contract, and they got the increase, CIR 3. So I'm more than happy, and I know Alice real well, and would love to sit down, we'll talk about these things, open the books, because they know us, and I mean, they know me, and they know Herlinda, and they know we're very open relationship with them. Again, we want the best thing for our staff.
Okay, that was number two, now number one.
Number one, I've done contracts for 20 years with the city, over 20 years. In this case, I don't have my legal counsel with me, who would probably tell us that what Mr. Campos is talking about is probably not accurate. Because in this case, we did 1022 in the beginning. We did send, but also, I mean, for those who do contracts in this city, know this. When you do a 1022, it takes you between 3 months to 6 months to get the response back. We get them all the time in sanitation. I get it from, can you do this one for airport? Can you do this one for BOE? Can you do this one for general services? It takes a long time to get the response back. When we're looking at the time frame, we could not afford to wait 4 to 6 months to do 1022.
We had the urgent necessity. I remember it well.
However, we did the second best thing you could do. You call the people who have customer care center. I did not need to call BOE and ask them, can you send me people who could answer a phone call? Because they said, what? That's not our function. we called 311, we called DWP, we called DOT, we called the people who have centers, 911. I mean, all these centers, we do calls, and I be lying to you if I said I was the only one calling. Other people in the mayor's office have helped us with the outreach because they knew the gravity of the situation. So did I send a report 1022 again? No, I did not. But did I call everybody? Yes, I did. And other people helped us with this. Again, so because the statements made by Fernando, I honestly don't appreciate them because they do insinuate certain things that we are doing illegal in the Bureau. And if that's the case, maybe we should release the employees and say, you know what, if this is for 14 days, knowing what he's coding 371, 372, which we talked with, there's no 373, but that's a different story. We could talk with the city attorney on this one. I would like to have our city attorney involved because she understands the complexity of the situation.
So that's what I would recommend is, and Ted, want to hear from you. Rather than the 14-day one, I want to ensure that we can continue providing city services at the current level. And then I would recommend that we continue this perhaps to Wednesdays for the General Counsel for Sanitation to work with the General Counsel with Mr. Jordan, and so that we can reach agreement on the issues that Mr. Campos put on the table regarding proposed advice to us that, look, once our executive officer puts that concern on the table, we need to have that recommendation before we move forward. We don't have a choice at that point. Okay. So my recommendation would be to hold this over until Wednesday. It's not a long time. We can continue providing service at the existent level between now and Wednesday, I'm confident, and we'll get our attorneys together and reach an agreement on what steps the board can take pursuant to the board report that's before it. And if the board can act on the board report that's before it, we'll be told that. If the board cannot, then we'll further extend it until a time that we can. So that would be my recommendation right now. Well, that's what I'm just confirming, that the Bureau will continue to be able to provide the current service at the existing level between now and Wednesday, and we've got some time to deal with this. Am I right about that, Alex?
Well, I mean, we can continue through Wednesday. That's not a
right.
Right.
So we can get this issue dealt with between now and Wednesday.
But if I release 26 employees, I'll be very honest with you, the call's going to skyrocket back.
We're going to go back to 55 minutes. I got it.
Thank you.
And that's not the direction that we want to go in. What we do want to do, because we have some confusion regarding the proper method for us to make sure that we can continue providing the current level of service. We know we can do it for a couple of more days. We'll get our attorneys together. We'll get consensus one way or the other on what the board report needs to reflect, and we'll find a way to maintain continuity. But in the meantime, what I'm recommending is that this discussion be moved over to Wednesday for potential conclusion. Any problem with that? Okay, then that's what we'll do. All right, thank you. Mr. Executive Officer, have we cleared the desk? Oh, I'm sorry, we have an adjourning motion.
Yeah, so just for clarification, that would be moved to Wednesday, February 24th.
Yes, thank you.
And yes, that does clear your desk after your adjourning motion.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Thank you. It's with a heavy heart that I want to adjourn in the memory of a friend, Ron Rogers, who died at the age of 72. He was an incredible civic leader, and he was instrumental in actually doing a lot of wonderful communications work here in the city of Los Angeles. He was a cowboy at heart, but he just had the heart of gold, and I had the great privilege of getting to know Ron and his wife, Lisa Specht, just in their roles and just in their role of really being great Angelenos, people with a lot of compassion and interest in giving back. Ron served on the police commission for police foundation for many years. He was a contributor to helping to expand awareness and opportunity for women to get service at rape centers in the city. And just saddened to have learned that he had passed over complications from cancer at the age of 72. And I'd like to adjourn in his memory today.
Thank you. We are adjourned.